Right. And we are live. Episode 007, Origins Part 2.
See, I've been looking forward to episode 7 simply because it's 007. I grew up being like a James Bond fan. Um, all of them. I like Daniel Craig. I like all those, James Bond. And so he just said 007, not 007. So I'm a little disappointed, but it's all right. Maybe we'll do some edits here.
Yeah. 007. Cut that one out.
Just kidding. Today I was in my car thinking about like, what are we going to talk about today? And tomorrow, by the time you guys listen to this, it'll be a new year. It'll be 2025, which is freaking wild.
Today is New Year's Eve as we're recording this. So
yeah. So it'll be 2025 in about 12 hours.
Yep.
And I was like, what do we want to talk about? What should be the topic? Initially, we're going to do, speed evolution, the evolution of speed, which we are going to be doing here real soon, which is my favorite topic is speed. But I felt it was appropriate to do an Origins Part 2.
Yeah, episode 1, we did an Origins, but it was more so about what it is we're going to be covering inside the podcast. Yeah. So today's a bit more specific on exactly who it is we are, why it is what we do what we do, and just try and give you guys a bit more information about us in case you don't already know.
Yeah, and we have some pretty cool projects that we've been working on, for the new year. Very exciting projects working with different populations that I think it's important that we talk about. And 7 episodes. This is our 7th episode, 007, of course.
Yeah,
7 episodes in, and we haven't really talked about any of those programs. Which, to be honest, like our number one focus with this podcast is to shed a spotlight on any program in the Temecula-Murrieta Valley that's impacting kids, and that's still our mission. But our ultimate mission is to impact the next generation. So a little bit about my background. So I'm the owner of Functional Speed Academy. I started my company in 2015. But I've been doing this since 2007. Prior to me starting my company, I did it the traditional way. I was in a gym. My first job was at an LA Fitness in Moreno Valley. And at the time, I was enrolled at UCR, and it was kind of like a segue job, right? Like, oh, this is the job before the job.
Yeah.
And growing up in athletics, I fell in love, with fitness at an early age, and that job, escalated, and here I am now, in 2000. So I was in the Riverside area. That's where I'm from. I was there all the way until about 2010.
Yeah.
That's when I ended up over here in Murrieta, Temecula.
Looking back, if you got to talk to your old self who just got his first gym job, what's his thought process on what your future looks like? Is it anything even close to what it is you're doing today? Or
you know what, I could have, the reality is I would not have envisioned what I'm doing now, working with kids, and I work a lot. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that I do, whether it's on my laptop or reaching out to different programs, and I'm trying to be impactful. So there's a lot of work I do, but the reality is it's not work to me. I stopped. Yeah. I would say I stopped working in 2015, meaning doing a job, and now I'm doing what I love. So I feel that if I was to talk to my younger version, I would say jump on that bandwagon a lot earlier, because the reason I actually went on my own in 2015 was because of my clients. I had been working with the same clients for, at that time, would have been like 5 years. Some of those same clients I still work with today, which is crazy because I have some clients that have been with me for, almost 14 years, 13, 14, 15 years. Same clients. I actually trained some of their kids. One of the kids I just started working with, a football player, I knew him before when he was like a year old. I knew him before his sister was born, and I've trained his dad for a very long time. And I'm like, he's bigger than me. He's 16 years old now.
Wow.
And I'm like, that is so wild. But I remember in 2015, I had a lot of clients, a specific client I used to work with. He was a really good friend, good mentor. His name was Rick Robbins. Sadly, he passed away some years ago. He was on vacation, and his kids got caught in the riptide. He saved his kids' lives, but by that time, he was gassed out and was unable to save himself. So that's an unfortunate story. But he used to talk to me all the time about, hey, Henry, you got to take care of people. You want to be as impactful and be as selfless as possible. He goes, you got to go on your own. He goes, you got to go do this on your own. At the time I was working at Gold's Gym in Murrieta, and I think it's an EOS now. They were bought out, but besides the fact,
Yeah.
So he was one of my biggest influences as far as like going on my own. And then I had a lot of clients that were like, hey, Henry, you got to go do this. So if you leave, like, we're not here for the gym, we're here for you.
Yeah.
And me at the time, I'm 37. So at the time I was like 26, 25. And so I give a lot of credit to my clients because they're the ones that actually kind of pushed me out the door and said, go do this on your own. And I remember when on my own, I had another client that she goes, oh, one day you're going to, don't forget about us, Henry, don't forget us older people. You're going to be like writing books and doing all this stuff. And I'm just like, cool. I'm still young. I'm in my 20s and I'm just like, okay, like I'm just want to train people. I'm having fun. I'm doing it privately. It's a pretty cool gig. Right. And then in 2019, I wrote my first course on the Functional Speed Academy Specialist course. It was a course for other trainers. And right now, one of my cool projects for 2025 is I'm working on a kid's book called The Evolution of Speed. So I'm going to have a book for parents that want to help out their kids. Yeah. And it's going to be, I don't want to say watered down, but it's going to be an ABCs of like speed. Like if you're a dad and you just want to help out your kid. And then I'm going to have another version that's going to be for trainers. But that's another, excuse me, that was told to me at the time by one of my clients. And they always saw this potential in me that I don't want to say I didn't see it because I've always had a big vision. I've always been driven, but they saw hidden potentials that I didn't see in myself. And so to answer your question, if I can go back in time, right? Back to the future, right?
Talk to your old self.
Talk to my old self. I'd say, you know what? Go do these things a lot earlier because all these things that I'm doing now, I do feel that I could have done 10, 15 years ago. And that's okay. We live, we learn. But that's kind of the advice I would tell myself. Would I have listened? I hope I would have. Yeah. My 21-year-old version was very, I was coachable, stubborn, but I was just like any other 21, 22, 23-year-old. I knew everything.
Yeah. That curve we talked about,
right. The Dunning-Kruger effect, false sense of knowledge. I felt like I had it all put together and I really didn't. I didn't know anything. I still don't know anything. It's like the longer I go in my career now, it's like the more I realize how much I don't know. The one consistent thing is I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to make an impact with kids. And that drive, that fire is still burning. It's burning more. I feel like it just keeps growing. And I remember before I went on my own, it became like I'm clocking in, I'm clocking out. And it wasn't so fulfilling. So I really do. If I can go back, I would be like, you know what, go on your own a lot earlier. So
I feel like that's probably why a lot of your clients feel so comfortable and stay around so long too, especially because if I was with a trainer and he trained me exactly the same way all my life, I'd probably question it and be like, there's nothing new coming out, nothing new showcasing, there's a better way to do it. It might make me feel like my trainer's being a little bit, he got to a good point and now he's just going static with it. And with you, every year you're always implementing something new. I mean, since when I've talked with you and used to work with you back in 2016, 2017, a lot of your methods have changed. And I mean like a lot. And it just showcases how much you're willing to keep going and keep learning because there's always something new. And I think that's, as a client perspective, that's a huge thing to see within a trainer is he actually willing to admit his old way maybe wasn't the most optimal way and then learn something new and how to do it the better way.
Honestly, that's like the competitor in me. I always want to grow. I always want to get better. Right. and I have to challenge my own bias. I've talked about this on previous episodes about being able to challenge my own bias. But at that time, I was temporarily confident in what I believe, but knowing that it's going to change.
Yeah.
And it's funny because now, I've been doing this for a long time. I've done continuing education is a big deal to me. I'm always trying to sharpen the blade, but now I'm going back to old things I learned in 2010, 2012. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's still relevant? What's not? So I feel it's important that you're always having this growth mindset.
Yeah.
And one thing I always tell all my clients is that, and my athletes, is like, if you're training with me for a year and a year later, our dialogue has not changed, meaning my skill set, I'm not bringing something new to the table, maybe it's time for you to move on. And I've always had that. I don't want to say it's a fear. Obviously, I work for myself, and some people say, one of my friends goes, "Man, you don't have a boss. It must be awesome." I said, "No, it's not true. I have like 35 bosses."
Yeah.
I have a ton of bosses, and it's the kids I work with, the adults I work with, and I want to bring the best. I want to bring no bad session. My goal, my personal goal for every session, whether it's a private session, whether it's a speed session, whether it's a homeschool session, like, I want to bring the energy. I want to bring the knowledge. I want to bring the results.
Yeah.
And in order for me to always do that, I have to constantly be leveling up. So that's something that's been instilled in me, that growth mindset. It came from sports. I genuinely believe that. As a kid, I grew up playing basketball, wrestling. It's just like learning. When I was a kid, it was like, okay, you had a good game, but what could you have done better?
Yeah.
Or you had a bad game, like finding the wins and the losses and finding the losses and the wins. So that mindset started for me early on. And now I'm still the same way. I don't want it, like, right now, trying not, to trying to stay as humble as possible. Right. But I'm a lot better today than I was today a year ago.
That's
Right.
the hope. Yeah.
And that's always been my goal. And I want to be able to say the same thing today, a year from now. It's like, wow, I've grown, whether it be not just in my skill set as far as like being able to train people, but as a human, I've become more patient. I've become a better listener. So those are things that I'm always trying to develop. Always trying to develop not just my skill sets, but I'm trying to develop my character. And I'm trying to, my goal, impact, give back. Am I doing enough? So those are the things that are constantly driving me.
Yeah, there's two ways you can go as a business owner. You can either have the attitude Henry has, where it's, sure, I don't have a boss, but I do have a boss, and it's all my clients, and I have to make sure they're always happy. I have to do it. And it's not just by being a great person, but it's also by trying to learn what it is you're actually doing, trying to always experience and get something new. Or you can be the other person where it's just, you realize there are things you can work on, but you just decide to be too hard-headed or just stick with it, that you just feel like you're perfect. But even when life showcases you, hey, there's something you can work on, I feel like that's where a lot of business owners tend to fail, especially within, let's say, like the personal training aspect, because they think the way they learn is the best way, and they're completely shutting the door instead of allowing themselves to even walk in it. Because it might not end up being the thing that you're going to get into, but at least you took the opportunity to make sure. Because at the end of the day, if you can't even do it for yourself, at least do it for your client, because your client's the most important part 100%. Of your business.
I think just growing the vision, having a big vision. I want a vision that keeps compounding and keeps growing, right? So my vision started off in the beginning when I was at, let's say, LA Fitness. It was just like, who can I help at Gold Gym? When I was working for, corporate America, it's just like, I still want to help people. I want to give them a good time. When people walk through the door, I want them to look forward to their session. That's always been my goal. But now, 2015, 2017, that vision got bigger. I remember in 2017, 18, 19, I started working with schools. I worked at Temecula Valley High School. I was the strength coach for a couple of years there, and won CIF. That was pretty cool. And just seeing the excitement, seeing things develop from start to finish. I remember, obviously, excuse me. I remember the speech that the coach gave at the end of the season. They had lost in the playoffs. Granted, they hadn't won a game, I want to say, in 2 years.
Yeah.
So he gave a speech, set the tone for the next season, and just seeing that whole process, seeing the development of, the off season, the summer, the early morning practices, the after school sessions, the speed sessions, the strength sessions, the film room, going to all the games and just seeing that whole process and seeing how those kids were impacted. I'm like, man, those are memories those kids are going to have for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So that just got me excited. And kind of give you a little more insight. We're talking about origins at Temecula Valley High School. I remember when I worked with them at that time, I was working with a handful of their athletes. I've been working with kids from all the schools in the Valley. And I remember at that time, I said, man, I want to give back to somebody. That's always been my thing. It's just like, what could I do to give back? I had done clinics. I've sponsored kids. I actually have a grant program that I started a couple of years ago. So kids who can't afford training and they don't have access to the right resources, maybe due to, financial circumstances or, family dynamics.
Yeah.
So I've always given back to kids, but I said, I want to do it on a bigger scale. I want to give to a program. And so I started researching all the football programs in the Valley from, Great Oak. I know that's your school, Chaparral, Vista Marietta. And the program that stood out the most to me was TV. The reason TV stood out to me is because they were a losing program at the time. They had gone 2 years without having one win.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I remember I was like, man, this would be awesome, right? This would be a cool story. If I go to like the top program in the Valley and say, hey, I'm a strength coach. This is what I do. I want to help your team. I want to give back to your program and, donate my time.
Yeah.
They win. People are going to be like, well, they were good anyways. They're going to win regardless.
Yeah. Kind of like last episode when we were talking about LeBron James. Well, and it's LeBron James at the end of the day. So yeah, same concept.
So I went to TV and I said, wow, we got a lot. I met with the head coach and actually, let me backtrack a little bit. During me having this idea in my head, the head coach was brought to my attention because I was working with some of the TV athletes. And one of the things I love to do, and if I've trained you or I've trained your kids, you probably know this about me. I go to the games. I love going to the games. Like I'm in the trenches, training them, beating them up, right? Getting them stronger and faster. But I like being a cheerleader, right? I like going to the games and cheering these kids on. I want to see them on the field. It's fun. So I'd always gone to the games and the coach allowed me to be on the sidelines and kind of stretch them out, help them out. And the coach reached out to me and said, hey, I've noticed that you're always on the sidelines watching the kids. And I've had a lot of coaches reach out to me saying we can train your team. He reached out to me. There was a referral. So one of his old players, his name is Stefan. He's actually a trainer in town. He had connected us together and he goes, yeah, I recognize you because you were always on the sidelines, like cheering these boys on. So that's how that connection happened. And then when I found out they hadn't won in like 2 years, new coach, new program, I was like, man, this is a pretty cool challenge. This would be a pretty cool story. Long story short, we won CIF. Right? No. They want. Let me make sure I'm not getting my facts mixed up here. They made it to the playoffs, and then the following year we won CIF. That's how it played out. So CIF, I think it was first round exit, which is huge because going from not winning one season game to making it to the playoffs, to winning a game, and then the following year, we won CIF. Got, I think it was 11 scholarships. It was pretty awesome. The kids were getting scholarships. And now that program is, to this day, I think they're still doing well. But that was part of like my vision, my ability to give back. I was like, I want to give back to a program that, where the story is going to be cool, where they need it. If a program is losing that much, it's not one thing that needs to be fixed. There's a lot of variables, a lot of moving pieces that got to get, put in the right place. So that's something I've always done. And I'm always looking for programs. So if you guys are listening to this and you have a program and you're like, man, we'd love to have you guys out here. I do it all the time. I donate my time. And I remember during that time, one of the things that I did is obviously I'm still a business owner. So the coach would tell the parents that, hey, go train with Coach Henry.
Yeah.
And obviously that at their expense. And I remember the parents were like, oh, wow. Like, what if we can't afford it? Of course we want to go train with you. And that's where I actually started the grant program, let them know like, hey, look, we got scholarships grants will help out your kids, get them the training they need.
Yeah.
And the only thing I asked the parents was for honesty. Like, just don't lie about your situation, because I didn't want kids missing out, because I was that kid. We've talked about that in episode 1, where, I was mowing lawns to like pay for my cleats and my basketball shoes. So I know those kids exist. So I've always been driven to give back. And, there's a lot of behind the scenes things that I've always done. And I don't talk about it because I don't want to flaunt it. That's not my agenda. The ones that know are the ones that matter. The parents know when I'm there supporting their kid. The kids know when I'm there supporting them.
Yeah.
And that's impactful to me.
Yeah.
Take it a step further. The relationships that are being built with these kids is awesome, because I've had kids tell me things where I'm like, I'm not going to talk about those details, but I'm like, that's some very serious stuff.
Yeah.
And then I will reach out to their parents and say, hey, confidential, your son or daughter told me XYZ. Just want to let you know this is going on and this is how they feel about the situation. And these parents, I'm like, if you tell them that I told you, then that trust is going to be broken. Right. So there's a very interesting dynamic in the relationships I build with the parents, the relationships I build with the kids. And I love it, because now I see these kids and they're flourishing.
Yeah.
They've started their careers. A lot of these kids have kids already. They're married. And I'm just like, man, if I got to imprint even 1% into that, then I'm happy I did my job right. So that's always been my driving force of impacting, is like, I want the impact to be beyond the field, beyond the court. And to this day, that's what gets me to jump out of bed and say, man, let's go get after it. So
Build a human, make them into the great humans in the society and let them flourish out in the world. And then going into programs, you have a couple, you said you're coming out with this upcoming year. So if you want to dive into them, maybe tell everyone what they are and maybe explain why you're doing them.
Oh man, these programs are exciting. So I'm going to talk about, they're all my favorite. I love all the programs. So I don't want to be like, I like this program more than this one.
Yeah.
This is not the right thing to say, but I am going to say it's going to be my favorite. My favorite program. Oh, I can't say that. I can't use the word favorite. Don't judge me, okay? Because they're all my favorite. But this one is very exciting. It's a special needs program. So I had spoke with one of the kids I work with. He has Down syndrome. His name is Brody. He's awesome. One of the coolest human beings on this freaking planet. This dude never has a bad day. He brings the energy. Brody is probably one of the coolest human beings I've ever met in my entire life. Like, just being around him is like contagious. It's very energetic.
Yeah.
If you know anybody that has Down syndrome, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. So I had talked to his mom I think it was in November, and I asked her, I was like, are there any other, because I know he does other programs, because there's a lot of programs that exist for special needs where it's helping them with like social skills, learning how to transition from like high school to adulthood, how to get a job, things like that.
Yeah.
And she's educated me a lot on, the things that special needs kids deal with, but one of them being their fitness. A lot of them deal with autoimmunes. A lot of them deal with weight. Thyroids don't work. So they're having to deal with health issues, and those symptoms get compounded over time and they get worse.
Yeah.
And I asked her, I say, well, Brody's training with me. We're obviously trying to get that under control. I was like, what other programs exist that help out special needs community with their fitness and their health? And there wasn't that many. There's a lot of great programs. I will say that there's phenomenal programs. She sent me a list of all the programs that exist within the valley that's nearby.
Yeah.
And I think these programs are phenomenal. But I started looking specifically for like fitness and health, and like I didn't find any programs. So I said, wow. So I said, what do you think about me starting a program for special needs, helping them come here, work out, exercise, have fun? And she loved it. She was like, oh my God. Her reaction told me everything I needed to hear. I was like, okay, I'm doing this program. So so right now I am in the process of putting together a special needs program that's probably going to be starting. I'm going to have to announce it, but it's going to be in the early part of either February, if not late January. That program is going to start. And I'm excited because there's another community of, health is the universal thing I'm doing, right? So whether I'm working with athletes, whether I'm working with adults, like I'm trying to get everybody healthy, and working with Brody for 5 years, and I've worked with other special needs kids, and some of them have gotten scholarships. It's been pretty cool. I'm like, wow, I was blown away that no programs existed. I
Yeah.
was like why? And so that's probably the program that I'm very excited about. I don't want to say it's my favorite. It's a fun, exciting project. So I was thinking about calling it maybe like specialized strength. Pun intended, right? Specialized strength.
That's a good one.
Don't know. I'm still trying to connect the dots. The other program is I started a homeschool program. Same concept. I teach a lot of speed and agility. I work with athletes. I think it's pretty obvious. My kids are homeschooled. They've been homeschooled for some years now. And I was like, man, I want a speed and agility program. I want a PE program that I would want to put my kids into. So I said, why not go build it? Why not go make that program? Yeah. So I created an entire curriculum. I looked at the California standards. It took me a while. It probably took me a few months of really putting the curriculum together. And I built a program for homeschoolers, and that community is booming. That's another awesome community. And I started that program. Well, we started that program in October. I want to say October, November.
Been a little bit, yeah.
Maybe the end of October, I think.
Yeah.
Around Halloween.
Sounds about right.
So, and that program's going well. It's starting. The word's starting to get out, and I do know there's a lot of great programs out there already for homeschoolers. But I was like, you know what? I want to do PE, physical education, with a bias towards speed and agility. Because what I found is a lot of these homeschoolers, just like my kids, they all play sports. And if you go to look around town and like how many sports programs exist at 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, like there's no programs, right? All these programs are for after school kids. So that's another program. I have so much fun. I know you've been doing it with me, and the energy these kids bring, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it fun, but also educational. So you want to talk a little bit about how that program goes since you're in it?
I mean, it's been a lot of fun. We started off a little bit slow, but like you said, word got out, and it's just been growing nonstop. And the whole point of the program is we're not trying to be too specific. We just want them to move, but we're teaching them how to move in different directions. Maybe other programs aren't being more specified in, because obviously we have the trainer background, and doing it in a fun way for them to get out and just have fun doing it. Obviously with high school athletes, we get a bit more serious with our training and stuff, but with them, we're purely just trying to get out, have a great time, have fun. We got so many guys, so many kids out there. I mean, like, shout out to Uzi, the little guy who's just keeping up with all the older kids and just trying to run with them. So sometimes we get some kids out there that are just, you look at them and they're just all energetic, all trying to get out there and have fun. And that's the energy we try to bring every day to the program is, hey, we're just trying to have fun, teach you how to move, teach you the language of movement, and just go with it.
And that's literally my number one goal, is make it fun. Is I want the kids to have a good relationship with fitness and exercise. I don't want them to see exercise as like a punishment. We've all had those coaches that will punish you with fitness, right?
Yeah. Do
burpees, you're in trouble. Like, I don't want to do that. But I want to make it fun, but I also want to make it very educational. So every session, we have a word of the day. That's the word that I teach them. At the end of the session, we go over like, what did we learn in the beginning? And what I've done with the PE program for the homeschool program is I started creating that speed encyclopedia. Remember I talked about that book?
Yeah.
Okay. So every time they learn a new word, I add it to their speed encyclopedia. And at the end of the month, I ask these kids like, okay, what's speed? What's power? What's agility? What's change of direction? What's balance? And I'm quizzing these kids, and they're getting the answers right. It's very impressive. And the reason I say this is impressive is because I know high schoolers who don't even know this terminology.
Yeah. I mean, when I started off doing it, until we started, honestly, the kids program has helped me out a lot with learning a lot of this terminology. I think it's great that you implement that into a PE session, because they're now learning what movement is and how to move. So now when they become older and they become athletes themselves, they can now understand the actual definition and what movement is. So now if they go, oh, I need better change of direction. How many athletes are thinking that in their brain? There's like, oh, I just need to move. A lot of athletes are like, oh, I just got to be able to move better in that way, but they don't understand the actual intent of what they need to do to move better in that way. And that's what you're kind of teaching in these classes a lot too, is giving them the knowledge so that way when they get to that high enough level where their brain can actually take all that information and they can start using it for themselves to become better athletes.
Oh yeah. And one of the things I remember when I was a kid, PE was my favorite class. I was that kid, right? I look like forward to PE. I look forward to recess. And I'm like, man, I want to bring back that. So seeing the kids during the classes, I get a little nostalgia. I'm like, man, this is cool, man. I was like, man, these games are fun. And sometimes we'll jump in. Yesterday, we actually had some of the moms jump in, which is pretty cool. So that's one of the programs. So we have the special needs, specialized strength. We have the FSA, which is Functional Speed Academy PE program. And then we have the Olympic Games, the Youth Olympic Games, where once a month, I come up with a ton of events, individual events and team events. And we just have the kids compete for a couple hours. And that's been a lot of fun. We've done that twice. And I want to get that growing. And I think a lot of it too, indirectly, I'm trying to give kids exposure.
Yeah.
Meaning self-exposure. I want them to like try stuff and be like, oh, that was fun. Oh, that was cool. I didn't know I can do that. And so they're getting exposure to different movements, different sports, different scenarios. They're having fun. The whole time I want the word fun to be going through their mind over and over again.
Yeah.
The way we know they're learning is the Q&A. We ask them at the end. They're like, okay, they're actually learning. They're being quizzed on this. So the Youth Olympic Games, that's once a month. It's usually the last week of the month. I do a 2-hour event where we just have a ton of individual events, like a 20-yard dash. You know, we did an agility shuttle. We've done a relay race. We've done flag football tournaments, rugby flag football, tug of war. Like we have a lot of cool events. I got a long list of events that I want to do, and it's just challenging their athleticism. And one of the cool things that I saw the first time we did the event was you'll have a kid that will dominate in one event and then just be mediocre in the next event.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool too. These kids are getting competitive. We gave them trophies, medals, it's pretty cool. So that is once a month. The homeschool program is the other 3 weeks out of the month. I do that on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Developmental time. So you got the Olympic Games to put it all together now for them to use, and then developmental periods for them to.
And then the other program that actually starts January 8th, and this is going to be another fun program. I've never done it with this age group. So with younger kids, but I'm going to do the FSA, the Football Speed Academy. So that's going to be starting January 8th, which is a Wednesday, and that's going to be at 6:30 p.m. Every Wednesday. I'm going to be doing a program where we're doing speed and agility with a bias towards football, right? Where we're learning motor skills, reaction time, learning how to have hand-eye coordination, proper mobility. We make sure that the kids aren't getting injured. So that program I'm excited about because I'm going to be coaching a Pop Warner team next year in August. And then this Saturday, I'm actually going to be coaching 2 teams for I-9, which is another great program if you want to introduce kids into sports.
Which I'll interrupt is also Coach Henry's birthday. So happy early birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll be coaching on my birthday. So I'm coaching both my sons, 2 separate teams back to back. So I'm coaching. So I'm like coaching my kids.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I have a lot on my plate. The podcast, this takes up time as well, but all of it's exciting. Yeah. So if you're having fun, it doesn't feel like work, and the work is fun. So that's kind of always been my philosophy from the time I was a kid to as an adult. And now in my career, I was just like, look, let's have fun with this process. Enjoy it. So, but we got one more program. Mr. David over here is going to be running a clinic, and he told me about this program a couple months ago, and I thought it was super cool because this population is some of the coolest human beings on the freaking planet.
I'll give a little bit of my origin and I'll go further into it later, but I'm a Marine Corps brat. So growing up, my father and my uncles were Marines. I also have a brother-in-law who's in the Army, a cousin now who just got out of the Air Force. He finally just got out. And I've gotten to meet a lot of cool guys during that whole time growing up. And one of them actually was General Mattis. I don't know if you know who General Mattis is. He was, I've gotten to meet a lot of these guys, and I've realized they don't just have like mental health issues, a lot of them, but they're also suffering from the physical health side. And there's nothing really out there to help out entirely other than just go to the gym, work out. And these guys have such intense mindsets that sometimes when I see their training, I'm like, dude, that's why your body's feeling so bad too. Like you're just making it worse. But there is a sense of like their time in service that does do a lot of damage to their body. And so with this clinic, my whole goal is I just want to provide back to you guys, give back to the community, and say thank you for your service. And at the end of the day, there is a way to start promoting better joint health from all the rucking you guys were doing and stuff, and anything else you had to do in that career of that enlistment. And yeah, because for me as an athlete, I know what it's like to have what people might even consider career-ending injuries, to have life-altering injuries.
Yeah,
and I hate that feeling of being limited. It's not a great feeling to feel limited. So when I got to work with you, kind of going further in my origin, that's why I reached out to Henry, was because he helped me realize that there's a way to not feel limited anymore that other trainers don't always use. And so that's why I've reached out to Henry, and Henry's put me in the right direction of understanding, hey, there's a way to get things back. There's ways to get range of motion back. There's ways to heal these injuries and get back to doing what you're doing without the pain. Like, sure, there's a certain sense of like once you injure something, it's never going to be its maximum potential anymore. But we can get you to a way better potential than what you would have been without this anyways. So that's the whole goal, is within these clinics going forward, I want to make this a future thing if it does well, where it's just veterans coming out for free. No charge, again, just giving back to the community and just trying to give you guys a little bit of help on those joints and make you guys feel a little bit better, go on those runs. I know my dad, for example, he's one of the guys I work with, and he was having knee problems. He was having back pains, shoulder pains, because he was a radio reconnaissance and all, so he jumped out of planes. He had all the fun when he was in, but now he's suffering from it, and now he's telling me, dude, I'm going on runs, and I don't, that knee pain I used to have isn't there anymore. Dude, that shoulder pain is going away now, like from just doing these basic things I'm having him do, and then the sessions that we also do. And for me, that's an awesome feeling, not just to get myself feeling better, but to know that it can also work for these guys who have endured a lot on their body and strains. And so, yeah, once I realized that, I was like, I got a soft spot for these guys. I've grown up all around them. Like, a lot of these guys are great guys. You know, they genuinely have a good heart, but in the Marine Corps, you got to be hard, you got to be tough. And they provide for the families, and they're always trying to be there, right, and trying to do the right thing. And to feel like I can give back to that community is a great deal. And that's the plan.
That's super exciting. We love our military, and you know the sacrifice these guys are doing. My dad was military. That's how I ended up in California. My dad was. I'm originally from New York. Well, I was born there. I was there till I was like 4, if that counts. But my dad was stationed out here in California, and then we ended up staying out here. My cousins are all military. I actually tried to go into the military. I tried to get into the Marine Officer program when I was 18 years old, and I tore my labrum. So that ended it for me. And because I was injured, I said, well, what am I going to do for this year that I'm waiting around to heal before I can go try out again? Let me try some personal training.
That's funny. I never knew that. I never knew this about him. And I've shared how I just started off my career, which was exactly the same. And he never thought to share that with me. Because for you guys that don't know, I earlier this year in February was medically discharged from boot camp. And same exact instance, I was trying to figure out, I had to wait X amount of time before I could do a re-enlistment, and was trying to figure, like, let's see if there's anything else out there. Maybe this is life trying to say something, right? You never know. And reached out to Coach Henry, and ever since then, it's been nonstop. Just realizing everything I learned in the past that wasn't from him was pretty much wrong, and just figuring out how to make myself better. One, right, physically, and then two, just give back in any way I can to whoever it is. It doesn't have to be just veterans, but whether it's athletes who have gone through the same thing, maybe they're in a program that taught them bad habits and now they're getting injured from it, giving back to them, or it's veterans who have unfortunately sustained a lot of damage to their injuries, whether it's amputees who need the extra help, especially because those guys have to sometimes, you know, if their legs are gone, they're using their arms like their legs on a daily basis. And so they got to for them, it's even more important for them not to keep up on that joint. But yeah, just giving back to anyone that needs it and wants it.
It's such a good community. I have some experience working with a lot of military over the years. I've worked a lot because they're all banged up. When they tell me they're military, I'm like, let me guess, lower back, knees, maybe some foot pain. They're like, how did you know? I'm like, lucky guess.
Lucky guess.
Lucky guess.
Those boots
And
suck.
they're some of the nicest guys in the world. You know, these military guys, you know, one of my best friends, he's in the military, he's in the Air Force. His name's Nick. And they're sacrificing time away from their families for our beautiful country, right?
Yeah.
And then it's not just the physical, the emotional sacrifice, you know, being away from their family, but the physical, you know, how their bodies are being taxed. You know, I've trained with many amputees as well. Even in jiu-jitsu, I've worked with I train jiu-jitsu with some amputees, some of the nicest guys in the world, and they're funny as hell. I remember one time, I'll never forget this, we were after class, you know, we were having small talk, and we were talking about knees. At the time, I had popped my knee, popped my LCL. That's fun. And everyone's like, "Oh, I got a bad knee too." And it became this discussion about like having bad knees. And one of the guys that was there, he's an amputee from the knee up. He makes a statement. He goes, "Oh man, I wish I had a bad knee." And we were like, we didn't know if we were supposed to laugh.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he was making light of the situation.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, I will never complain about having a bad knee. But these are the nicest guys you ever met. There's this other guy I train with now. His name's Wally, and he's missing an arm and a leg on opposite sides, got blown up. And nicest guy you ever met. When he grabs you, it's scary. I mean, the guy has really, really good jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, and I've heard a little bit of their stories and, you know, what it does to their head, the PTSD, all those different things. So when you told me about like, man, I want to work with the military, I said, man, dude, that's awesome. Because outside of the VA, there's not a lot of programs for them. It's like, okay, let's put some dirt on it. Here's some ibuprofen, get back out there. And then all of a sudden, 20 years later, they get out of the military and they're not, you know, the VA does the best they can, right? I'm not 100% familiar with that program. What I do know is from what I've been told from prior military, they're like, dude, they don't do anything. They're not helping me. The rehab's not very good. I'm just like, so when you brought up like, hey, I want to help this population, the military, I was like, well, dude, I love the military.
Yeah.
And those guys need it more than anybody. So I thought that was really exciting. And when's that first clinic?
It's going to be January 18th at 10 a.m. over at Icon Fitness in Marietta. And it's free. And going into the family part too, having grown up as a Marine Corps brat, I know what it's like to have a dad gone in combat zones. I know what it's like to not have a father figure around. Maybe even just like if someone has maybe a mother who's in and they have to go and they have to leave on deployments all the time and stuff. It's not easy, right? And so the plan is to get back to the kids too, as long as the wives. So for this clinic on January 18th at 10 a.m., we're going to be doing, it's not just for veterans, but it's also for their spouses. And if they have a caregiver, you're more than welcome to bring them. Everyone comes in for free. And then eventually, if it does well enough and there's enough kids that want to get involved, I want to do something for the kids too. Because at the end of the day, I want to bring that community together. They all understand it, right? Having someone that maybe they can even just talk to and communicate with and have an understanding of what that process is like. And I feel like I understand what that process is like and what the hardships kind of come with it when you go a year or two at a time without someone being home and your mom's got to do all that extra work. So for the moms or for the dads who have, you know, their spouses in the military, I've seen that end of it and I know how much work you guys put in. And so I also want to make sure you guys get involved, get the love and care you guys need to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And just to kind of wrap it up a little bit, our ultimate goal is to make impact, right? So we've kind of shared a little bit of insight into David's program, some of the programs we got going on. But the reality is, no matter how hard we try, we can't get everybody. We can't impact everybody. And that's the motivation behind this podcast. We know there's a lot of businesses out there that are working with kids, working with military, and they're impacting their lives. And if we can team up and just expose like these guys, like, hey man, these guys are awesome. Like we want anybody who's helping kids, they're making a difference, not just in the kids' lives, but they're making a difference in the community. Those are the type of guests that we want on our podcast, because David and I can't help everybody. We can't impact everybody, right? But if we get a team and we say, hey, let's find out all the people that are having a similar goal, a similar vision. That's the motivation behind our podcast, is getting guests in here to let them know what they're doing and how they're helping people. And then if it fits with you, like you mentioned the military thing, if you guys are like a military, if you're a youth athlete and your parents are in the military, go talk to David. Go train with him. We want relatable, but we also know you're going to have situations where neither one of us can help you. But we're like, hey, but we know this guy in Temecula over here. He can help you. He's familiar with the situation. So whether you guys are trainers, whether you're an athletic organization, whether you're a sporting organization, we can talk about our own experiences, but we want you on here. And we know that together we can make a bigger impact. And that's our ultimate goal with this podcast.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the thing me and Henry both, I think we can say agree on is we're going to do our absolute best to be the best person, to be the best trainer, father, son we can possibly be, but we're never going to be great everywhere. We can be the best we can be in all those places, but you might, like you said, we specialize maybe in speed, we specialize maybe in strength, maybe we specialize, I have the background of Marine Corps brat who understands what it's like to have a dad gone. So just like how you were saying, like if we don't have the answer for you and it's not an area we're the best at, and we know we want to give you the best experience possible, I believe we have the humble ability to say, hey, I just don't know that answer for you, but I want to make sure you get the right answer and not what I think is the right answer. And I know this person can. So we're always going to be trying to give back out and just make sure you get the right help you actually need, no matter what. Even if it means we don't get to work with you, that's okay.
That's not our goal.
That's not our goal.
We're outnumbered, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like the issue with a lot of people that do what we do, trainers, PTs, doctors, chiropractors, all that, they're always competing, right? But the reality is, like, if you took all of us and put us together in a room, and then you took the entire Temecula, Murrieta, even Riverside, you took that whole valley, like, we're outnumbered by a lot. Oh, yeah. So it's like, what's the point of working, like competing, like, oh, I'm better than David, don't train with him, or our basketball program is better than their basketball program, or our football. Like, I think it's nonsense. Yeah. And as long as we have this vision of like impacting kids and helping the next generation, and we understand that no one of us can do it by ourselves, and we all need each other. And if we kind of connect our brains together and we like attack that vision, together, we can make that bigger impact. So that's the purpose of the podcast. Is if you guys want to train with us, cool. If you want to train with somebody else, or maybe we know we got a PT coming on, and I believe next week or the next couple of weeks we have a strength coach, we got baseball coaches, we got a lot of pretty cool people that I respect and trust. Yep. If we can't help you, we can at least help you by being like, okay, go that way. That's the guy you want to go talk to. Yep. So that's our ultimate goal. So we thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully we were able to shed a little more light into our insight into our vision and a little bit about us.
And who we are and why it is we do what we do.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess until next time.